Hey there, everybody. Today is Thursday, July 2. July 2. Yeah, I'm going to start saying dates like that to see how people react. Anyway, today is July 2nd, and today I have a very special guest. His name is Dave. He's my buddy. He's an attorney, and he's going to be talking about business interruption insurance. But first, if you haven't done so already, please smash that like button, and also please hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with everything going on right now. I love to have your support, and I appreciate it. And also, if you have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments below. I'd be happy to try to answer them for you. All right, so my friend Dave is here with us. He's an attorney here in Colorado, and he wants to talk about business interruption insurance and how that might be able to help you and your business during this pandemic. He's going to talk about the background of business interruption insurance, your likelihood of getting it, and what you should do. All right, so Dave, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so what I was thinking is just obviously this whole deal that's going on with Corona and stuff has impacted businesses. It's impacted my business, and I know you're dealing with the PPP, the loans, SBA, that kind of stuff for businesses. And so I figured I could kind of discuss what I've seen on my end with some things that people have reached out to me and said, hey, my business is affected. Is there anything legally that I can do? And oftentimes that comes up in business interruption and business loss insurance. And you have people who are calling saying, hey, I have this business interruption insurance. Does it apply? Mm-hmm. And most often the answer is like every other lawyer answer out there, it depends.
Yeah.
But more likely they're going to get denied. And we're seeing it's almost like a blanket denial unless there's some specific inclusion that they bought ahead of time. For example, some restaurants will have went through the SARS and like all that stuff, and then specifically had virus inclusions for if they're in a restaurant and there's something that contaminates their food. And so they bought business interruption insurance with that in mind. And so that might be one situation where business interruption could apply.
Okay.
Is if they've had that forethought of, hey, we could get some type of virus or E. coli or some bacteria, something in our food, and it could interrupt our business. We may have to shut down for a little bit. Let's prep for that. That's when, but it's still going to depend. Because there could be a pandemic exclusion, and most often insurance policies carry a pandemic exclusion.
Wow. Yep.
So it's pretty wild the amount of exclusions, inclusions. Each policy is so drastically different from another carrier's policy that it's every time somebody calls, the answer is it depends.
So Dave, is this like a separate insurance that you have to buy, or is this included in some business policy that you usually get?
So usually if a business has business property and liability insurance, there should be business interruption that's included there. Generally, most policies will carry it, but it's generally for those times. So I grew up in Florida, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times you see business interruption insurance if there's a hurricane or something, a tree falls on a building, and there's no access to your property and there's physical damage. But generally business interruption insurance comes into play when there's physical damage to your business through tree falling on it or a fire, something like that, and you can't use it, so you can't have people in your business or you can't produce a product. And so it's interrupted for a time period. The whole pandemic and virus interrupting insurance business is a whole different beast, which it seems to be pretty novel and new to the insurance industry, despite having dealt with other viruses and stuff. I mean, this one's being that it's worldwide and it's just huge. It's just new. And so right now there's what's called declaratory judgment or complaints for declaratory relief in court, where businesses have hired attorneys. They filed a lawsuit seeking declaratory relief, asking that judge or that court to say, hey, does this insurance apply to the business interruption from or not?
Yep.
So there's a lot of that right now, but there's consequences that I'm not sure that attorneys look at, and that is, if these are covered, can you imagine the insurance company's bill if they're paying business interruption insurance for every business that it carries? Even if insurance companies had the forethought of putting in the exclusions in there, like, wow, this could tank us if there's a pandemic, let's put a pandemic exclusion, but somehow it's still covered. Hurricanes make some insurance companies go bankrupt because there's so many claims. And that's one area of the country. Could you imagine worldwide insurance companies being like, all right, I got to cover like every business now?
I know.
So there's a flip side. It's really great to have coverage, and you're paying premiums for a certain thing and you think it's going to be covered. It's good to have that, but then it's weighed against, well, the insurance company made these policies to exclude the specific thing because they had the forethought of this could bankrupt us.
Yeah, just like with disaster loans, usually it's only in a certain area with like a hurricane or earthquake or something. And so the SBA is able to handle it relatively well. But now since the pandemic is covering the entire country, it's really putting a bog in the system, and they've had to hire thousands of people just to cover this. So yeah, I mean, it's really affected the way that SBA is running things as well. So can you talk a little bit about how the payments work? Like, does the insurance give you a monthly payment if you won the business interruption claim, or how does that all work?
Yeah, so I mean, imagine if you had a fire in your building, right? Then you have to do it. And I imagine it's something similar to the SBA loans where you're having to provide the documentation showing this is how much you paid out to employees, but on the flip side, how much you bring in.
Yeah.
So we'd probably get an accountant like you involved, and they'd look at the books prior to the event, the interruption event, and look at what the business was making before. Then you'd look at how long the business was interrupted, and then look for reimbursement for that time period where they weren't making that same amount of money.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. And we've had it before we've had it for business loss after car accidents. So the majority of my practice is focused on personal injury and dealing with insurance company on the personal side.
Yeah.
But we've had clients who've been in a car accident and they're driving a work vehicle, right? And so that work vehicle has been out of commission for months on end. And so there's the business interruption there, business loss claim that you'd have with the insurance company. And that's where, so you take the claim, you review the facts, you get all the yearly statements, the profit and loss. And in here, I would review them and get a general idea, but then generally hire an expert accountant to then come in, a forensic accountant to come in and look at the books and determine an exact number and then back it up with the numbers like you're familiar with.
I just got to ask, you're a personal injury lawyer. How did you start getting involved in business interruption claims?
Being a personal injury firm for the most part, we do personal injury, we do some criminal defense and some business litigation. Obviously, we've just had friends, family members, clients that know that we practice law and do insurance with the personal injury cases and bad faith insurance cases and business litigation. They've called us and asked about these business interruption policies. And like I said at the beginning, the majority of time, the answer is if we're asked whether it covers or not, the answer is it depends. Most likely they're going to get denied out of the gate because it looks like the majority of insurance companies are denying it. And the biggest, besides the exclusions that are in the policies, with the pandemic exclusion, the virus exclusions, the other thing that you have to have in a business interruption policy is property loss. And it's hard to argue that is the property loss, right? So if a tree falls on your property, or property damage, sorry. If a tree falls on your property, you get property damage. It went through the roof, there's the damage. With a virus, there's been some orders that have gone out that have said that it's the potentially being in these buildings is property damage. But the insurance company is like, well, No, it's not. There's no damage there. Most of these buildings are being shut down in a precautionary measure. So we can't show that there's actually a virus there, that, you know, the place has to be cleaned out or something like that. And so there's no real property damage there, so it's not included in the business interruption insurance. That's another argument that they have out there, because there's civil authority coverage where a building gets shut down by a government, and then there's business interruption for that. And so the example of that is if there's been a fire in a neighborhood, and so everything's shut down and there's property damage to a building, and it can be shown, that your business is interrupted due to that property damage. It's weird because everything's shut down, so the civil authority clauses may apply, but then you have the same property damage argument from the insurance company, which says there's no actual damage here, so we're not covering it. That's really where the court has the declaratory actions in front of them, is for that question, whether they constitute property damage, and then whether these other clauses then that should provide coverage for the civil shutdown apply. So it's convoluted, and it really would depend on each and every specific insurance policy, and what the inclusions are, the exclusions are, and if there's a pandemic or virus exclusion, and it's going to be fact specific for each business. For example, there might be a business where they had three or four people in there who had, and they could tell it spread, and they had to have cleaning crew come in and clean up and disinfect. Now, can that be shown to be property damage because they could actually show that it was in there and they had to make a concerted effort to get it cleaned up? Maybe. Yeah. Right? So it's really fact specific and insurance policy specific, but it's kind of a mess right now.
So given everything that you said, what would you advise people to do?
We've had people call about the claims.
Yeah.
And our advice at this point is, if you think that you have a business interruption policy and you think that this will fall into it, make the claim.
Yeah.
And then see what happens. It's most likely going to end up in a denial, but the first step is make the claim, because there's certain time periods that you have to make from your first notice that you have to make the claim in. And so our advice is make the claim with your insurance carrier. And then if it's denied, we can then look at the policies. So it's in that step of we're waiting to see what happens.
So basically people just need to make the claim. If they feel their business is interrupted, they just got to make the claim just to get the process started.
You don't make the claim, then you don't have anything, right? Yeah, and you're out of luck. Mm-hmm. So everything's time period dependent in law, and you want to make sure that you're not outside of time periods. And that's dependent on your state, your policy. So just if you don't make it as quick as possible, you could lose it.
Thanks, Dave, for all the information here. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we ended our discussion?
Yeah, so the only other thought in addition to the business insurance is we're seeing the effect of Corona more so on the personal injury side with significant car accidents. So we are practicing the majority of our practice is personal injury, right? So we're seeing car accidents. We have seen a slowdown in cases coming in because there was a whole lot less cars on the road, right? So now we're last month and this month seeing the effect of the slowdown of the cars on the road from the months before. But the cases that do come in, the people are way more significantly injured. And that's because the speeds that these cars are going, with less traffic on the road, there's less bumper to bumper traffic than there was. I'm looking at my window now and traffic seems pretty solid out there. But over the last couple months with 50% less cars on the road, there's a lot more room to move when you're out there, and a lot of people going crazy. I mean, the speeding tickets that we've seen, like 130, 140 miles an hour in the news, is just is
No
nuts,
way.
right? So imagine getting into an accident or having somebody hit you at that speed. I mean, you're flipping, going shiny, dirty, and it's not a good situation. So my one last thing is, if you're out there driving, just drive regular, drive safe, because the accidents we're seeing, people are significantly injured, and it sucks.
Yeah.
So,
That's
and
advice.
if you are in Colorado and you've been involved, somebody's hit you, and you're significantly injured, then reach out to us, because you're going to need help.
All right, Dave, well, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And everybody, I'm going to leave Dave's contact information in the description below. And remember, he's an attorney in Colorado, so he can only practice law in Colorado. Just keep that in mind if you're thinking about contacting him, all right? Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And again, if you haven't done so already, please hit that like button. And also, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with everything going on. I'm going to be doing more of these collaboration videos to bring in experts in their fields to kind of bring some different perspectives in this time. So stay tuned. I'll see you tomorrow and take care.